I discovered something, and I wanted to share it with you. On a Discord that I mod, somebody linked this Instagram link, and so I had to check it out. Being ex-Catholic and an artist and all, it was this flyer for an ex-Catholic artist magazine. And I was like, whoa, that's super cool. I've never heard of anything like this before. Definitely sounds like something right up my alley. And so, looking more into it, this is something called Residual Believers. From what I can tell, it's run by somebody whose Instagram page is called WhereNat, and I think that they are a Midwestern artist. Some information on the founder. It is run by Nat Ware, an artist raised in the Catholic Church and attended 12 years of Catholic schooling. Residual Believers was started as a platform for other artists whose work has been influenced by their experience within Catholicism. Whether you no longer believe, have a complicated relationship with your faith, or are somewhere in between, Residual Believers is a place to examine Catholicism, liberation, theology, and personal stories of faith through art and writing. Of course, I had to look more into this, and it turns out that you can actually see the first edition of the Residual Believers magazine on issue.com. And they're actually currently taking submissions all the way up until, I believe, August or September. So this is something that you can still currently participate in. Important to note, you don't have to be ex-Catholic to publish a piece of artwork in their magazine. And they're a quarterly publication, so if you don't have time to submit something by their next issue, that's okay, because it looks like they'll be having multiple ones. I will post the submission guidelines right here. You just have to say your name, pronouns, an artist statement and bio, and link your social media info. The bios and the information really helps, especially somebody like me who's looking into this, because when I see interesting artworks like this or this, I want to know the backstory behind it. I find it interesting that it's marketed towards this community. I don't typically find myself being targeted for being ex-Catholic very often, especially in something empowering or creative like this. So when I found the first publication on issue.com, this was the description underneath. Whether you are an active parishioner, no longer believe, have a complicated relationship with your faith, or somewhere in between, Residual Believers is a place to examine Catholicism and personal stories of faith, or lack thereof, through art and writing. Similar to what we saw in the statement from Nat. So let's have a look at some of the artworks that the publication has put out before. One of my favorites is this one of a female being reflected in the glass that looks in the shape of the Virgin Mary. Just as my own personal take on this piece, I find it very relatable. Growing up as a biological female within the church, there was always pressure from Mary being the role model of perfect femininity, and what that looks like within the church predominantly is being quiet, submissive, docile, subservient, nurturing, and these are all fine qualities in anyone if that's who you naturally are. But as we've talked about many times on the channel, femininity is beyond that, and there are plenty of Catholics who would agree with me. I'm not saying the Catholic Church pushes against that idea, but there's still a lot of traditional feminist archetypes within the church, and that's what I see in a photo like this. This was another one that I found pretty interesting. In my painting, My Body is My Home, I am reclaiming pride and authority in my body and its capabilities. I refuse to be submissive or quiet. At the bottom left corner of the painting is an Our Lady of Guadalupe candle. This candle is a reminder of where I have come from and how far I come despite what I have been taught in the past to believe. No matter what my beliefs are, my family is culturally Catholic, and it will be part of my life experience and identity no matter what. And honestly, some of the ideas even within that post in general, art piece or not, really I think captures a facet of what I hear often within the ex-Catholic community, that no matter how far away you separate yourself from it, no matter how long you're out of it, being ex-Catholic, having that Catholic experience is always just a part of who you are, and it takes some time to accept that, warts and all. And in this painting, to see that this person took it, embraced it, and continued to make this a part of their empowerment, I think is really nice. My work investigates different facets of queer identity through research, poetry, ceramic, and traditional drawing, in addition to my bioperformative hormonal transitioning, taking testosterone. I've been making objects of queer optimism and protection, employing Catholic forms to elevate queerness and gay sexuality to the divine. Catholicism plays a double role here as it connects my work to my roots growing up Chicanx. I'm sorry if it's pronounced some other way, and white in so-called Southern California. I'm interested in the nuance within the site-specific religious colonial history, both of the various impacts on colonized people, my ancestors and community, but also consequential warping of Catholicism itself upon contact and exchange. Guided by these questions, my art explores what happens when I inject myself, my body and sexuality, and my ancestry, including magic, into these things that seeks to exclude or transform me. One of my more favorite ones was taking depictions and imagery of Jesus and other biblical figures and turning them into female ones. I just thought the twist on gender was pretty interesting here. My work is concerned with the representation of gay experiences through homoerotic re-representations of Bible stories using the evocative visual language and symbolism of the Renaissance, elements of Christian ideological tenets with the commonalities among the LGBT people. The Bible stories chosen for each work correlate thematically the experience dictated, and in doing so, the negativity normally associated with such occasions is inverted. In particular, I work to give gay women a narrative voice that has historically been denied them in religious academic paintings. I seek to create a history from the ground up, where women can love each other and have complex, autonomous lives independent of men. I use printmaking and wheel throwing as a way to connect my origins, ancestors, the land, and my community. My work ranges from figural to abstract and non-representational, using Mesoamerican and religious influences, form, and color to talk to the audience. My range of work is used to communicate my thoughts on social justice, heritage, queerness, and gender identity. My focus is on the Chicanx culture and how radical queerness intersects with the rigid, hyper-masculine, machismo, nationalist influence to create a body of work that transforms what means to be Chicanx. This comes from a place of learning who I am within the Chicanx queer community and how to claim our existence within a culture that can be confining and homophobic. There were a few here that the description in the bio didn't necessarily give information about the piece itself, but that I enjoyed. Some of the art that I found within the magazine is a little bit confusing to me. While I've been in the art world for some time, just casually, I can appreciate textures and medium and overall placement and representation of art, as well as the emotion put into it. And sometimes, while it's not aesthetically pleasing to me personally, I can still find the topic fascinating. And I found that that was the situation with a lot of these artworks in the magazine, as well as some of them were just sort of confusing to me, but, you know, maybe some of these art pieces aren't meant for me. The ex-Catholic experience is so multifaceted and complex that my white conservative upbringing does not encapsulate all of what's in the community, especially a universal church. But I am ex-Catholic, and I do art, and I wanted to participate somehow, and I wanted to make this video when I had a finished art piece, but the more that I keep trying to create an art piece to submit, the more that I'm finding I still have a lot to work through within my own healing process. I've only been out of the church now for 2 years, which really is not a long time, especially in comparison to how long I was in the church. And so I'm happy that this has encouraged me to approach my processing of being an ex-Catholic through my artistic lens because I've never really done it before. And because I've never really done it before, I have a lot of progress to make. So I can share with you what I have right now. I don't know if I will ever submit an art piece, but who knows? Maybe I'll find something that I like. And I also have to take into account that I haven't taken art classes since I was in 8th grade. And all of the materials that I'm using to make art are all from Walmart because I don't have money. So please bear with me. But I wanted to kind of share what that process has been like so far. Just a little bit of background on my own artistic style. I tend to either just paint or do cartoons. And I kind of wanted to bridge out of just those styles limiting me and kind of just see what kind of visceral emotion my sketches would come out with. So I tend to enjoy sort of gritty, almost disturbing art styles. And I kind of wanted to try that out here because right now my relationship with my ex-Catholic experience is kind of disturbing and negative. I should also add that the Discord server that I mod, which invite in the description below, our mascot is the black sheep. And for me, what that represents is, of course, the obvious, like, black sheep of the family, right? The person who is outcast. It's supposed to be a satirical take on, like, oh, we're still sheep, because, leave the flock or whatever. But we also kind of take it as a form of, like, empowerment and taking back something that was a part of our identity, being white sheep, being Catholic. We are now black sheep. We are forever sheep, but we are now willingly outcast from that community. And so taking that imagery of the black sheep, I kind of wanted to play around with it because I enjoy that mascot so much. So the first thing that I did was write down a bunch of words that I associate with my ex-Catholic experience just to see what would come up. And so the first little sketch I had is this black sheep kneeling down at a little shrine that is indicative of one I used to pray at often in college, and it has a very sketched version of the Divine Mercy. So then I started playing around with imagery that I saw often within the church, or meant a lot to me at the time. I was very devoted to the crucifix, and so I was wondering if I could sort of incorporate that in my art. And once I settled on this image of the black sheep on the cross, tied up in the rosary, because I used to pray the rosary obsessively, I started seeing a direction that I wanted to go in. So then you can see me playing around with various ideas of the rosary and the cross being used to tie up this black sheep figure. I sort of settled on this one because I enjoyed just how it encompassed a lot of different things, with the Divine Mercy Chaplet light coming from the sheep's eyes, as well as the choking, suffocating effect of the rosary, and the cross going in through the black sheep's skull, as well as the crown of thorns, all with the sheep just sort of existing in this state of oppression. So I tried to take that and work with it, and my first rough draft painting of it looked something like this. I'll be honest with you, I don't really like the way that it came out. It came out really muddied, and I think that's an effect of the paint type that I used and just how cheap the quality is, unfortunately. It was the concept. We have the Divine Mercy Chaplet lights coming from the eyes, we have the cross going through the head, crown of thorns, and the choking of the rosaries around the black sheep's neck. But I'm not really satisfied with the outcome, and that's okay because it was my first try. And then kind of working with the same imagery, I was like, okay, maybe I'll try colored pencils and see how that works. And then I got this effect, and I ended up changing the black sheep to be in a shawl, just to sort of give it like that biblical, spiritual imagery. And it ended up being like green and purple because spirituality is not something that I shy away from in my personal life. It's still a part of who I am. but it has the gold rosary beads on it, as well as the crown of thorns, which is causing a lot of pain to the black sheep, and it's bleeding. And instead of doing the gold cross through the head, I decided to do red crosses in the background. I took out the Divine Mercy Chaplet lights altogether, and I don't hate this one, but it's not something that I would want to submit. If I had to choose between these two, I'd probably choose the first one. Unfortunately, I haven't worked too much on the project in a few weeks, just because I haven't felt any inspiration towards the project, and I figure I'll give my brain a break for even attempting to tackle my ex-Catholic experience in a visual language. I know that takes a lot of emotional effort from my brain, so I'm happy to even have these two art pieces all together. Even if I don't end up submitting anything and I just took the time to make these art pieces, that's a victory to me. So yeah, overall, I think Residual Believers does a mixture of photography, painting, pencil drawings, digital art, anything that I think expresses ideas of this whole encompassing theme of Catholicism and how it affects people's lives. I will promote ex-Catholic media any chance that I get, especially when it's such a creative manner and something that you guys can get involved in if I can spread the news about it. If you want to submit something, that would be super awesome. Comment below some ideas, what you think of my art. Maybe I'm just being hypercritical, or maybe not critical enough. I'd love to hear what you guys take away from this video, or from any of the art or my art that I present here. So, thank you for watching.